Hello boyos, Rich Boy J here back again with another video, and this is going to be episode 22 of the LEGO Star Wars MOC Showcase. If you're not familiar with the series, this is basically a compilation of a bunch of the best LEGO Star Wars MOCs that I've come across on the internet for the week. All I ask that you do when coming away from this video is if you like any of the MOCs I show off, please go support the builders. They're in the description. You guys know the drill. Now let's go ahead and jump into the MOC. The first MOC we're going to take a look at today is a system scale Millennium Falcon build by a builder by the name of Stifos. I think this is, without a shadow of a doubt, easily the best system scale Falcon build I've seen. And I really don't usually like doing renders, reviewing those here on this series, but I feel like Stifos just did such an incredible job on this that it was definitely worth doing. It's also a really nice render, so that certainly helped with that. The first thing that I really noticed about this is the technique used for those corridors, specifically that kind of like mid-cone shape that you have to do. It's a circle, but it kind of angles in as you get like towards the outside of the corridor, and that's once again not an easy shape to accomplish in Lego. I'm honestly not even sure how that works underneath there. I'd probably have to actually look at the innards of it. I think he actually put out a stud IO file on this if you guys feel so inclined to check that out, but it looks really good. I think it looks actually pretty incredible. So wonderful job on that. I think that a lot of the angles on this thing just look so good, especially done at this scale. The amount of details and the fact that the shape looks so accurate, I feel goes a long way. Lego is really just kind of, honed in on what they feel is the optimal design for a Falcon. And don't get me wrong, the system scale Lego Falcons are quite good for what they're trying to accomplish with playability and just making something that, can open up easily and is accessible for kids. I totally get that. But I think this is an interesting take on the Falcon of that size. I think the Greebling also looks really nice. He's clearly using just, tons of parts to get a lot of the weathering and various like mechanical pipes and stuff that we see on the Falcon. One of the more interesting parts of this design is how those front mandibles are built. They're not built like just straight out. They're kind of built in an angle, and you can kind of tell that with the way that the bricks are laying if you look on either side. Specifically if you look at like those arch pieces, they're built at an angle. They're not just kind of built on the standard Lego grid that you would expect to see, which gives it a very smooth kind of outline on the outside, and I guess would kind of complicate things on the inside of those mandibles, but I think that he actually ended up working it out pretty well there. I really like that technique quite a bit. The second thing I wanted to talk about on this specifically is the backside. I think that back area with those like exhaust ports, the top hull of the Falcon look really good. I think also the fins that are sticking out of the back look really nice. I feel like that's kind of a detail that Lego kind of skimps on whenever they make their Falcons. They I don't know, it's very repressed whenever Lego designs it, but I like when people make these designs actual fins that kind of stick out of the back of the Falcon. He even has some dark red in there, which I think is really cool. One last thing that was certainly worth mentioning is I think that the area at the very top, like that window that you would look out to operate the top gun, the circle build right there is like almost perfect. I've never seen someone do a circle build specifically like that using the that slope piece, but the one that doesn't have the stud on it. It's a 45-degree slope, but the like stud area is kind of hollowed out, and I think that looks really good. I think that if you're building a Lego circle for whatever you might be building a Lego circle for, this is actually a really good technique. The combined use of that 45-degree slope without the stud, as well as those curved 1x3 slopes, looks really, really good up there. If you move on to the next photo, we get a better look at the bottom of the ship as well as the front and the back. And I really feel like if you want to look at how detailed a build is, you pick it up and you look at the bottom. And this is clearly a design that the builder spent a lot of time on, not only on the top and the areas that you're more likely to see often, but also the little things, the bottom of the ship specifically. And I think that he just knocked it out of the park. It has like all the right shapes. Once again, something built at this scale would not be easy to accomplish, like all the various shapes of the Falcon, but he really did a great job. As someone who spent quite a bit of time looking at Falcons, trying to design mine using Marshall's design, like I see all the important features of the Falcon here, so I give him so much credit for that. He even has the bottom gun with the window actually built into it as well, So there's really no complaints that I can have about this ship. Like, I guess the one thing you can say is, oh, it's not minifig scale, but when a builder does it, even at this scale, so well, how could you even criticize them for something like that? You also just get a good look at the front and the back of the ship. Once again, it all just looks fantastic. I think that just the general shape of it, how round it looks really nice as well. I think whenever Lego puts out their Falcons, especially the most recent one, it's kind of maybe a little bit more flat than it should be. But I think this is a good balance between flat, but then also it's not too sloped going towards the top. And the final photo shows probably my favorite part of this. No, definitely my favorite part of this, the interior. Look at how incredible this is. The best thing about this is the interior is actually mostly accurate to what you would see on the actual Falcon floor plan. When Lego does this, they usually, for one, don't even include the hallway that goes to the cockpit, and two, some of the rooms are kind of shifted around. Like, it's generally correct, but it's not as it should be. Specifically, the main room where the Dejaric table sits is usually kind of centered over closer to where the cockpit is, and then there's just more space kind of going off to the side of it. I think he did a good job at incorporating all the important rooms on the Falcon. In fact, I can only really think of one room that you probably would want to incorporate that's not here. But like I said, the floor plan is almost perfect. And at a Falcon of this scale, I think that is just freaking amazing. So once again, like, if you're a person who, I don't know, maybe you don't want a big Falcon, it's minifig scale, if you're just fine with something like this, you can build something that still has, an incredible interior, incredible exterior details, and still get all the bells and whistles, and even, more than the UCS Falcon. This Falcon has more of an interior than the UCS one, but still kind of keep a relatively small form factor. So this is a build to consider for all you guys who may be looking for something that is not as massive as the UCS Falcon, but you still want all of the details that come with it. Next up, we're going to take a look at a clone ambush on Trandosha. This is by WG Productions, and I love this because it's so reminiscent of that arc in the Clone Wars when Ahsoka gets abducted by the Trandoshans, and they basically are like having a hunting game with Jedi on like their planet in the jungle area. So this is kind of cool. It's reminiscent of that, specifically with the ship overhead that the two Trandoshans are in, and then you have the one heavy Trandoshan on the ground with the giant minigun. I think that's actually kind of sweet how he did that, especially with the armor, or not even armor, like the spiked shoulder pads. That's pretty cool. I love it when people do take creative liberties and make some like nicely detailed figures to include in a MOC like this. So the first thing I noticed definitely is the minifig placement. Like I said, the Trandoshan with the minigun down on the ground. You have the two clones kind of shooting at him as well. And then you have the two guys up top in their little vehicle. There's just, for such a small MOC, there's a decent amount of action going on. So I think that that's actually pretty sweet. And I think the landscape is really nice as well. The black border definitely goes a long way. And I don't know, just making the MOC feel premium. It's like you take the black border away and it's a good MOC. And it looks nice, but you add it and it's like, wow, like this thing should be on a shelf somewhere. So I don't know what it is about that black border, but it definitely goes a long way for MOC. So I can appreciate when a builder is willing to incorporate that. I think that a lot of the just like shrubbery and foliage work at the very top looks really, really nice. Specifically, those like green kind of, I don't know if they're horn pieces or vine pieces or whatever you'd call them, but those that are kind of hanging off of the architecture there, I think actually looks really good. And of course, like, the stone kind of that they're sitting under, there's lots of detail in there. He's using some masonry bricks, some olive, no, maybe that's dark tan, some dark tan bricks in there. He has some brown vines coming out of them as well. So all in all, just this is a very small MOC, nothing huge, nothing out of control, but there's so much going on. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the ship that the Trandoshans are flying in up top. I love how the one guy is firing into the air. I didn't know that claw piece came in trans orange, but like that is actually a really good technique for like a blaster bolt coming out of a gun. So take notes on that. I'd probably use that in a MOC moving forward. I always love the technique with the binocular pieces. If you kind of connect them all around a Travis brick with studs on four sides, it makes kind of like Gatling gun looking design. So I can appreciate that. And all in all, it's just a cool little ship build that those guys are flying in. Like I said, it is definitely very reminiscent of that arc in the Clone Wars. So this is just a really cool MOC. Like, it's a small MOC, but it kind of sits up tall because you have kind of like the landscape as well as the ship sitting above them. And this would definitely, I think, catch someone's eye no matter what you put it next to or where you put it. So all in all, this is just a really good looking small scale MOC. Next up, we're going to look at a chopper build by Rob Van Leeuwen. I like when people do builds like this that fit into the system of Lego sets. Like, for example, you know, if you're going to have the BB-8 set and the R2-D2 set, why not have our good friend Chopper right along with them? Looking at this, it looks like it's probably a little bit bigger scale than the R2. Like, it probably, like, if you sat them next to each other, this would probably be a little bit bigger than the R2, which is clearly not supposed to be the case. R2 is a bigger droid than Chopper, but it still is kind of in line with that design of droids. And this builder does an incredible job on this, I think. I think, for one, the shaping of the head is what really the most important thing to get down. This is kind of goes back to the corridor thing I just talked about earlier with the corridors on the Falcon, like just kind of having that circular / cone shaped build, and doing that on this, especially at a larger scale, would not be as easy. So the fact that it mostly looks like how it should, I think, is actually a really good testament to the builder's skill. I also really like just the various weathering on Chopper, specifically like how he has the dark green arm on one side and it's kind of more armored up. And then the left side is, I guess, a little bit more bare. There's a usage of, you know, dark tan and olive green parts to show a little bit more weathering as well. There's pipes kind of hanging about. It's not like a symmetrical droid. He got the various details on either side correct, which I think is actually pretty cool. And then, of course, on the bottom, you have Chopper's signature big wheel. It'd be honestly kind of impressive if he could build this in such a way, maybe even using like some clear parts, but to basically have it looking like it's just kind of rolling around on that one wheel, kind of how it does in the show, which is, you know, very cartoony. But like, if I'm going to like pose Chopper, that'd be a pretty funny way to do them. And of course, he has his Chopper arms that pop out of the side of his head, also look pretty cool. If we move on to the next photo, we get a look at the back of the droid. I think this really gives you an even better look at the cone shape on the head. He even has an antenna coming out of the top of his head, which I didn't even notice on the first photo. But still, once again, just various weathering and rust, because, I mean, Chopper's kind of an old, worn-down droid by the time we meet him in Rebels. And I really feel like the builder just has a nice flow of various weathering details to make this thing look pretty accurate. And I think it really just brings Chopper to life. So all in all, I think the builder did an incredible job on this. Like I said, I love seeing people build kind of droids like this that fit in line with the UCS Lego droids. So wonderful job, man. Hey guys, it's Raskolnikov here, back again with yet another big, awesome Star Wars vehicle. This time it's the Home One, and oh my god, the curvature in this thing is absolutely incredible. I think it's worth mentioning right off the bat that he says it is not finished. It is still a work in progress, so keep that in mind, I guess. But it was, you know, finished enough for him to take to Brick Fair, Virginia. That's actually where this is right now. So whenever he claims it's finished, I'll probably do another update on this thing just to show you guys, you know, this MOC as it's intended to be finished. But as of now, this thing still looks incredible, which is why I figured it was definitely worth showing off in this video. So like I mentioned earlier, the curvature in this thing is really just kind of mind-blowing. The fact that he was able to get so many of the kind of bubbles and curves and replicate them very seamlessly, it seems, in Lego is just insane to me. Like, I can't even imagine how, like, trying to begin to try to accomplish something like this, but he did it, and it looks so good. One of the other things that's just really nice about this ship throughout it is just the colors. There's just a great palette of colors used. Like, the Home One in the films is kind of rusted, and there's kind of some patchy looking colors on it. So I think that the usage of the light grays, but I think the usage of the tans, light grays, the blues, and even the hints of dark red just all look really nice here. One of the assemblies I really love in this build is actually the hangar section right on the side of it. I don't know, it's just nice when people integrate kind of snot details like that kind of seamlessly into other builds or other sections of the build that aren't necessarily snot. I love that so much. But I mean, it's so hard to dive into and talk about a build like this in detail just because there's so much going on. It's one of those things that, I mean, it's just so appealing to the eye. You kind of just got to sit back and just look at it and appreciate it. Like, there's just so much right about this vehicle, right? Like, the engines in the back look really nice. I think that the way that the front kind of comes to a pointed curve also looks really good. And like I said, the various just curves and kind of bubbles that protrude from it also all look fantastic. Moving to the next photo, we get a better look at the back of the build, and there's just some crazy usages of parts here that kind of make the backside of this also kind of come to like a rounded curve. And the fact that like the engines are integrated into that as well, like with those inverted arched pieces, just looks insane. And of course, there's some like piping and tubing kind of going along the entire vehicle that just make this thing like, I wish I was at Brick Fair right now. I would love to see this thing in person. The final photo shows off a bit of the interior. This was a work in progress photo, so I have no clue like how far along this interior of the vehicle has come. This was made obviously much longer ago than the like most recent first two pictures were made. But look at the interior. Like, that is just so freaking cool. Like, he has some workstations for the Mon Cala guys, even like towards the back. It's kind of hard to see, but it looks like he has some people working back there, perhaps on like maintenance or working on the engines or whatever. But that looks really cool back there as well. And then towards the middle of the ship, there's the classic like Home One meeting room. And man, I love this so freaking much. Like, what an incredible builder. But yeah, whenever this build is 100% complete, I'll definitely come back to it and review it again. And I have no doubt he'll probably put out the instructions to this thing at some point, and I will buy this in a hurry. Like, this is so freaking sweet. Alright guys, that's going to finish up the video today. I hope you enjoyed checking out these MOCs as much as I enjoyed getting to talk about them. So one thing I ask is that you go and support the builders. They certainly deserve it. Use those links I've included in the description and show them some love. That's the only thing I ask that you take away from this video. And also, if you like what I do, go ahead and support the video by hitting the like button, support the channel by smashing the subscribe button, and I'll be back again very soon.